quarter-final in a week's time.
Well, the whole of England will be watching. It's a great game, and England and Australia have played each other quite a few times in the Rugby World Cup. So this game will take place next weekend, and it will be England-Australia. I think just looking at the way Australia played so far in the World Cup, they've handled the ball more than anybody else, but that's become quite predictable. And I think today, especially with the wet weather, to see them a bit more variety from the Australian team. Tamura's got a big game to play. He's got a big chance of getting the starting team next weekend, but he's got to just bring a bit more variety to the team, and that's what I'm looking forward to see. Have they got any kicking game? Because so far they just keep the ball in hand and they just power on through. But it's a big game, and as Michael said, this is very close to the test team that will play next weekend against England. So it's a big game for all the England fans watching in, and to see how they handle Georgia, but also handle the weather. And are they going to be better prepared for this game than England? England got a couple of weeks off now, which can be too long from the kind of coaching preparation point of view, where the Aussies have got this game today, a big run out with most of their test players, and it's a big game for them to prepare for England next weekend, so it should be a cracker.
The weather might force their hand in where they play here today, Michael. They might have to play a tighter game, kick a bit more.
Yeah, and that's they have been holding the ball a lot. They haven't kicked a lot, which makes it easy for the defence to come up and just pressure them. Often you need to mix things up to actually make the defence question you a little bit more, and so I would like to see, Nick White's a good box kicker and a good tactical kicker as well. Tamura is a centre, so it'll be interesting to see what sort of shape he puts on the game, and having played at Leicester for a season or two, he's probably used to weather like this, it'll be interesting to see. The forward pack looks strong, and it'll need to be against the Georgians today, but the backs, I don't see them sort of looking to do too much high, wide and handsome stuff straight from the start.
And Sam, before we go live over there, a quick word on Mamuka Gogradze, one of the greatest players ever to have played the game, a giant.
I've known a lot of the lads who played at Toulon, who played with him at Toulon, they say he's an absolute monster of a man. They're a great player, so he's been a Georgian great, so hopefully he can bow out on a positive note this afternoon as well. Yeah,
let's not forget Godzilla is a big old figure in Japanese pop culture over there. This man is a big figure in World Rugby, his last game for his country. Fair play to him. Well, as you can see, the weather isn't great there at the moment. Showers in Shizuoka, so it may not rain tries. It's weather for the big men up front, plenty of those in this Georgian team as they face Australia in the company of Nolly Waterman and Simon Ward.
Thank you, Craig. Yeah, good morning, everybody. Two teams who've spent the day in camp watching the skies get darker, the squalls of rain get heavier, and that breeze turning into significant winds. It's the calm before the storm, maybe, but I'm unsure quite how the weather will affect this final Pool D match for Australia and for Georgia. Some big send-offs, as Craig has mentioned, particularly in the Georgian team, but several of the Australians will be finishing up on this World Cup campaign as well. So plenty to play for. First up, of course, the formalities. The national anthems for Georgia, Tavisu Kleba, and then for Australia, Advance Australia Fair.
Ladies and gentlemen, the national anthem of Georgia and Australia.
ジョージア国歌、オーストラリア国歌の演奏です。
So, nationalistic ambition in the rain, not diluted at all. Something of a rarity for your Friday fix of World Cup action. It's an historic first ever meeting between Australia and Georgia coming up next.
Land Rover Discovery Sport, worldwide partner of Rugby World Cup 2019.
Fly Ryanair, Europe's low fares, low CO2 emissions airline, and get up to 25% off your next holiday. Book Ryanair today.
Some saw us as strange, as troublemakers, as an embarrassment. All we ever saw was a team.
Coverage sponsored by Confused.com.
Georgia set for their last game in this campaign before they head back home. Australia know they have an extended tournament still to play out. Well, Michael Cheika has complained about the slow starts his team have made. He says, I'll have to get my match speech and my pre-match speech a little bit better. Nolly Waterman alongside me for this one. It is very important for Australia that they get out of the blocks and into gear quickly.
And interestingly, Pocock won the toss and they chose to kick the ball, which shows the intent. You're going to see a big kick chase and a lot of pressure from a defensive perspective.
And certainly it's something that the Georgian coaches have been setting up. They have a pretty good idea, they think, of what's coming their way. Boko Gorgatse immediately inviting Sandro Tadua into some hard action. Georgia, who came back from that loss to Wales before beating Uruguay, getting their first ever try bonus point in a Rugby World Cup, and then losing to a Fijian team that really did discover its mojo. How similar Australia will be, you're never quite sure, and it is something that they're looking for, that continuity. Michael Liner was alluding to it in that pre-match preview with Matt Tamura in at 10. Looking for more direct play, perhaps. Certainly White and Tamura, the third set of halfbacks that Cheika has used in 4 games. He says it's to do with the intense competition within the group. Those outside think there's an inconsistency there. A question mark maybe as to what his best 9 and 10 combination is. As Jack Dempsey, certainly he seems to have made a good impression having started that Uruguay game, the only one of the forwards to remain in the starting group. Rory Arnold sets it back. Tamura and co happy to put width on it early doors before Scott Seo opts to set up another attacking point. Curtly Beale invites Corey Betty up to the 22. Go Australia. Well, handling, we know, has been a problem throughout this World Cup. That doesn't look like it's going to change today.
Yeah, the weather isn't ideal for the type of rugby that Australia have been playing. Building a lot of phases in and around that middle third of the field. But credit has to go to Georgia, making their tackles, getting back up on the feet and filling the field.
Nice, inside. Talking about the Australian halfbacks, they've never played together, certainly not in a 9 and 10 green and gold shirt, but of course they know each other well. How quickly they are able to sync will be fascinating to see how quickly this Australian attack can galvanise and get going, I guess.
Yeah, they're both great rugby players, and they've had superb moments throughout both the Rugby Championship and the World Cup. Not necessarily together, but at different moments. And Tamua came on against Wales and made such a difference. This is a different type of game, and they spoke about it in studio. It's very different starting than it is coming off the bench. But in terms of how he plays, so Clive was talking about the variety, and it will be interesting to see whether Australia continue to keep ball in hand and not use the weather conditions to put the ball along the floor and kick Georgia and keep them pinned back in their own half.
And on the flip side of the coin, how Georgia look to impose themselves on this game. Yes, we know the forward prowess that they've been able to utilise on many an occasion. But Milton Hague has been trying to up the ante in their 15-game play. Again, the ball escapes the clutches this time of Fesaladze, and it allows Australia to reboot their attack just outside the 22. Tamua trying to engage a few defenders before it's released. Great handling dexterity from the front row. Sikotukepu bound for the UK shores with London Irish after this tournament. Well, Tamua looks on almost in resignation there. Here's the call.
Yeah, you see his arm sliding up, it does hit the chest, but these conditions are going to encourage that in terms of how slippy players are with their shirts, with the ball. Australia were riddled with high tackles against Uruguay. They had 2 yellows because of it, gave away so many penalties, so much possession, and this definitely isn't the start that Cheika would have wanted.
Yeah, discipline has been an issue. 14 penalties they gave away in that Uruguay game. They're averaging over 10 per match. Only Samoa have a worse record than that in this comp so far. That said, their discipline was excellent in the Rugby Championship, so it is something that they know how to control. Georgia calling for the scrum once again. There's a familiar figure, this time in Georgian colours. I wonder whether that shirt will still be there after 80 minutes. Yes. Yes, we can see, sir.
Keep opening hard. It's good. Open your shoulder. It's good. Crunch! Bye! Set! Stay! Ball is out before.
The ball there for Kamaladze, and immediately, once again, bring Fesaladze in on that crash ball. Yogodze making a little more headway than his wingman. And Mukashvili sets up once again, and they get the call. No, it goes against them for holding on. Well, when you've got an uber jackal like David Pocock around, you've only got less than a 50-50 call, I guess.
Yeah, if you don't work hard on the floor to get the ball away from the tackler or jackal coming in from someone like Pocock, then yeah, it's pretty much a 50-50 whether it's going to come back. Georgia, there was a really nice tip on, but there's a risk when you tip the ball on like that you lose the connection with your supporting players. And when you've got back rowers hunting for the turnover, it's a risky play.
You can see the hooker going in and Pocock applying himself. Sam Wolverton will be purring at that in the studio. That's what all sevens love to do, especially early on in a game. And here comes Pocock now in attacking mode. Tataya now trying to play his part, but the ball ends up in the hands of Gogatse. Australians retake it. Tolulatu bundling his way up. Good firm tackle from David Kacharava. No way through there for the Australian attack. They're going to have to go again. Again, trying to get through the front door, but Georgia closing it firmly in faces. Taking a look round the side of the building now. Dempsey.
What's on the board?
Rory Arnold. Another one who'll be heading to French pastures after this game, or after this tournament, I should say. Playing in Toulouse colours along with his twin brother Richie, the Twin Towers of Toulouse. Again, White and Tamua eager to keep that ball moving and eager to get the front row involved. But again, Georgia just eating up those forward drives.
Backwards by goal. Play off.
Now it goes out wide to Korobetti.
No hands. Easy.
At the moment, the work that Joe Worsley's been doing with this Georgian defence is bearing fruit, and they don't seem to be stretched, having too much angst.
Yeah, although Australia are keeping the ball, they're just trying to bludgeon their way through with one-off runners. And this is easy pickings for the Georgian defence.
Now it opens up at Courtney Beale, but just as the offload was on, the ball goes loose, and Machiashvili tries to find a way out of danger.
No, still unintentional call. No hands.
The knock-on call will give Georgia the advantage should they require it. But Kamaladze says, let's get out of here. And forces Australia to go from deep. And forces Korobetti to kick. That's an unusual thing in itself. Here comes the Georgian fly-half, Kamaladze.
Probably not the person that you want to run into on a counter-attack. Bocock was just waiting to smash him.
Yep. The shoulder was flexed. But Georgia go into enemy territory and now try and stitch together some momentum into their play. Well, even the experience of Mamuka Gogotse not enough to cope with the butter effect on this ball this evening.
And here we see the physical work of the Georgians' defence. As I said, it's relatively easy for them to be defending Australia at the moment. It's one or two passes and then run as hard as they can. And as much as it's keeping it simple and not pushing the ball and being too adventurous with your attack, you still need to create some type of question for the defence to answer.
Well, you can see who's had the majority of the workload in this first 11 minutes. But they'll be satisfied with that outcome. No real threats to their try line. The left-hand feed from Nick White. Tamua, the quick juggle, with O'Connor in off his shoulder. This O'Connor-Karevi midfield combo, the 13th combination that Czech has used since the team left Twickenham in 2015. It really seems to have found some traction in the way that Australia want to play, the variety that those two can bring to their attack. And certainly with James O'Connor, a Swiss Army knife of a rugby player in the positions he's played, he now seems settled in that outside centre role. Played in so many of the green and gold shirts, numbers 10 through 15, brings so much to the group, but now just fine-tuned as a 13, as an outside centre, and no doubt honing his own particular skills in that particular role. Akrazadze biding his time. Jordan Pataya, 19 years of age, made his debut with a try in that last game against Uruguay, but only lasted the first half. They took him off as a precaution at half-time. Australia's youngest ever participant at the World Cup since a certain Joe Roth, a legend in the Australian history books. Now, big concerns here.
Real concerns with Beale down. His left arm not moving. Whether he got it caught at the bottom of that tackle in the breakdown.
Yes, the immediate response from the officials once they called it. Let's see it here. Is it the drop there, I think, from the Georgian player on his shoulder after this there. It was Kacharava who dropped on the Aussie fullback.
I'm not sure whether that was a shoulder injury or potential concussion. Didn't look like a nice collision, and hopefully he's okay.
Haylett Petty, like-for-like replacement should he be needed. There he is, the former Biarritz boy. Let's have a look again at this. Well, it was a sliding contact, wasn't it, from the Georgian 13.
Slip on the ground, and he dive on the player of feet. The restart is penalty against 13 white.
Yeah, you can hear the call from Michel Gauzer.
No. Marius, check all. If something obvious, you come to me. It's penalty here. Penalty. Yeah, nothing wrong. Because it's no. Please. Yeah, I'm asking. We review. He slip on the floor and he dive on the player.
Good to see Curtly Beale getting somewhat groggily back to his feet.
Penalty.
I think it very unlikely that we will see any more from him in this game as Haylett Petty makes his entrance.
Time on. 13 white.
Like you say, it's good to see him walking off the field. Although the penalty was given, referee explained that actually the 13 from Georgia, Kacharava, just slipped and slid into him. It was an accident, so it's good to see him okay.
Beale will have the HIA, the head injury assessment that World Rugby have put in place over recent times to make sure that if a player does come back on, he's fit and able to. From those pictures, I think that's probably unlikely in this instance. Pocock pushes it back, but Nariashvili had stepped forward. This Australian attack yet to really synchronise, but they're trying to find variety. It's not always obvious where they can go.
Yeah, the Georgians aren't committing to the breakdown. They're keeping players on their feet. It's a silly penalty here. It's an obvious one straight in from the side. They've done the hard work. They've spun the Australian wall towards the touchline.
Well, it's from this touchline that Latu hits his target, Naisarani, providing the ball back for his hooker. The drive comes on. Georgia trying to distract it, trying to deflect it. It's still there for the Wallabies. Arnold, met by a fairly sizable reception committee. Scott Seo, no way through there. The forwards not releasing it out, looking for that pick and drive to tenderise the Georgian fringe defence before they make the decisive thrust.
No, back!
Pick and drive, 7 phases. Will turn into 8 fairly quickly as those Wallaby forwards line up for another go.
Ball available.
Georgia working so hard to man the ramparts and getting reward for their efforts. Well, you can see the reaction from the Georgian team, forwards and backs. That's a tick in the box for them.
And you could see the body language from the Australians, so frustrated that their efforts were repelled. Incredible defensive effort from the Georgians, because they are big, strong Australians that know what they're doing, and they forced that error from the work rate and effort on their line.
Yes, you can see the autograph of a certain Joe Worsley in that defensive structure. That's why he was brought in by Milton Hague and Graham Roundtree, of course, the forwards coach who knows Worsley well. He was brought in ahead of the summer to try and make sure they were in the best possible shape.
And there's a lot of talk with Georgia actually getting the opportunity, moving from Tier 2 to Tier 1, and this is a perfect opportunity to show that they might not have had the performances earlier on in the tournament, but when they come up against a team like Australia, they give them everything possible, and they want to leave this World Cup, just like every team will, with their heads held high.
Well, in the Rugby Europe Championships, which is more commonly known as Six Nations B, Georgia once again did the Grand Slam this year, their 10th title in 12 years. Gives you a fair idea of how dominant they've been in that tournament and how ready they are to step up. But at the moment, all applications, all requests seems to have been rebuffed by the powers that be.
And it's more the opportunity to be regularly playing against other top nations. The learning that you get from playing against top teams, top players, is fundamental to grow as a squad. And you can see that at moments through this tournament, they've got some superb skill sets, but they don't see it through for the full 80, which is the type of experience you get when you play against teams and from the top tier regularly.
Crunch!
Well, a kind of inevitability that we're going to see plenty of this in these conditions today.
I think one thing to note, if you saw on shot there, Gigashvili wearing the number 3 for Georgia, the length of the studs that he has in his boots, he is going to need every part of that to give him stability in the scrum.
Good to see Courtney Beale watching on, but as I suspect, I think he'll be a spectator for the rest of this game. Yeah, Gigashvili is actually quite an interesting story. Was on the Grenoble bench for quite a long time, just 27 years of age, but has just signed for Toulon, big money deal, so I'm told, to be their regular tight head, and that's de rigueur for the French clubs in the top 14. They have to have at least 1 or 2 Georgian props in the group. Well, anybody seen the ball? The plus is that I don't see the pitch cutting up. And let's face it, we have seen some turf wars, turf waves in various stadia throughout the course of this tournament so far.
And it is hard to get that right when they're pitches that aren't necessarily played on regularly with top-tier rugby nations. These are big men creating huge amounts of force through the ground, especially at set piece. So you're definitely right. And for these two teams to not be making too much of a mark is a credit to the groundsmen.
You see those possession and territory stats showing the influence and opportunity that Australia have had in this first quarter. But the top strap line is the scoreline for Georgia, and they will be delighted with that. Still to get out of their own 22, and the call coming from this near side. Well, Michael Checker can't believe it. 'Twas ever thus.
He aired his views and frustrations after the Welsh game, saying that they weren't allowed to scrummage in that game. Clearly disagreeing there with the referee's call goes there.
Georgia have got good raps for the amount of scrum penalties they've won so far, twice as many as anybody else, and that shows due diligence, concentration and consistency. Let's have a look there. Scott Seo sniffing the turf.
And he's no slouch, so it is a big credit to Gigashvili. It's CO's 50th start in the gold and green. So a bit of a hat tip there to the Georgian tight head.
Scott CO turns 28 next Wednesday. He was actually born 3 days before the 91 quarter-final. And his dad, Tavita, was in the Samoa squad on that day. He said if Samoa win, well, the baby will be named Manu. If Scotland win, well, you can work out what happened. High ball, awkward for Patea to get solid purchase, but his teammates work the ball back in any case. Arnold sets it back for White. Tamua spots a gap in a tired Georgian defence there, gets the offload in. Haylett Petty sets it back, and Australia find themselves back up towards the Georgian 22. Karevi. White throwing it out to those ravenous forwards waiting in at first receiver. The 2 second rows shutting the door fairly emphatically in the face there of Corambetti. O'Connor. Deft skills if needed, James O'Connor. White keeping things moving, keeping the pace, the momentum in these attacks now for Australia as they try and make the most of the inevitable fatigue that must be working its way into Georgian limbs. Masarani, good offload, and Dempsey in the right place at the right time. And Australia just beginning to build now. Threat. 14 phases, Kepu. Awkward pass, but out it goes from wingman to wingman. Corabetti brought down on the 5, but his wingman partner Patea takes it on. The forwards now just lining up. The call goes against Georgia for an offside, I think. White still there, burrowing through. The Exeter Chiefs scrum half opens the scoring. The bagel is finally broken after 22 minutes. And it's the Aussie number 9 who's done the deed.
And they can finally take a deep breath and know that they've got points on the board. Nick Smith burrowing his way round. Nick White. It is the original line break. Tamua spots the mismatch with Mikhail Tadze. The big second row from Georgia. Can't cover the space, and then really great build-up play, just being patient with the ball, looking after it at the breakdown, and then the try was inevitable.
Nick White sniping for his 3rd try. Announced this week that he'll be returning to Australia after this season's exploits with the Chiefs down in the West Country. It was always agreed, apparently, that that would be the case. So he'll be returning to the Brumbies. Alongside that man, David Pocock, of course. Matt Tamua will be back in Melbourne Rebels colours, now with his first opportunity off the tee. Job done for Matt Tamua, job done for Australia. They've had to work long and hard for it, forcing Georgia to put in over 100 tackles inside these first 23, 24 minutes. But eventually that stress allowing the scrum half to burrow his way through.
And using the slippy ground just to nudge the ball onto the white line. 100 tackles in the first 23 minutes is a huge effort from Georgia, and it will start to take its toll. But the difference with the attack from Australia was the speed that they were getting from each breakdown. They're actually clearing out and moving it away quickly.
Mistake from Nasarani on the restart. And how many times do we see that? How fallible of the team that has scored points. There's some mental offload that goes through as they walk back over halfway for the restart, and it's a penalty.
And those are such frustrating moments as a team, as a coaching group. Yeah, the penalty given for the ball being dropped and then a player in front of the person dropping it, touching it and picking it up, deemed as offside, and now a great opportunity for Georgia.
Yeah, the big Fijian just losing the ball. Maybe in the lights, of course the lights will be an issue, but really no excuses for that. And this allows Georgia to find some immediate comeback, some immediate retort to that Nick White score. The forwards get themselves into that driving phalanx. Pulled down on the 5-metre line. I'm not sure whether that's a Georgian forward he's trying to pull out or an Aussie defender, but either way, it's going to go Australia's way.
It's always interesting to see what teams do defensively at a line-out. Australia choosing to not put anyone in the air to repel the maul a lot easier because everyone is on their feet and they can take people as the Georgians land. I think against a team that is good structurally, has good strength when they set up the maul, that's probably what you're going to see for the rest of the game.
So that Georgian opportunity thwarted, but those forwards will be looking to exert some pressure on Australia ball now as we work our way towards the half-hour mark in this game.
Crunch! Set. Stay, stand up. Stay. Use now.
Naisarani trying to drive his team away, make up for that earlier mistake. Isaac Rodder, one of the new breed in this Australian outfit, but, well, I'm not sure whether the pass was for Latu, but he stuck his mitt out. It's gone forward, players in front of him, and it's going to be a Georgian penalty in a prime spot now.
Sharakadze getting one in the face with a flying arm. Not quite sure that there was any intent in it. But yeah, great opportunity now for Georgia.
Kepu getting slowly back to his feet, doesn't look too happy. Neither does Milton Haig. Good to see he's got the right clothes for this weather. He was offered a string vest by the coaches earlier on because he was struggling so much with the heat.
Yeah, I think the humidity has dropped, which has made it a little bit easier for the players and the coaching staff's dress code.
Well, you can't tell between the rain and the humidity on an evening like this.
10 meter is here, 10 meter is here on the line.
Looking at the Australian attack, at the moment there are some good carries, they are getting good momentum. They did with the try that they scored. But I'm seeing that they're getting a little bit isolated, and like they did against Uruguay, they were winning the collision as the ball carrier, but then they were getting disconnected from their supporting players. And the Georgians are hunting every breakdown, because if you allow this Australian team quick ball, they are lethal with line breaks and the skill set that they have in the backs, even in this weather. But that's something that they're going to need to look at and tighten up to make sure that they don't give away cheap penalties or turnovers.
Kepu slowly making his way back, doesn't look happy. So Matiashvili with the first opportunity for points for the Lelos. Five minutes after that Australia score, Georgia come back with points of their own. As the rain continues to increase in intensity, playing into the faces of the Wallaby side in this first half. Good work from Roda. Nice Irani revs things up. Good work from Kvesalatsi, had to move up quickly, and that was a very important intrusion into that Australian attack.
It's a lovely adaptation of the restart, getting the ball back. You saw both Naisarani and Pocock still on the left-hand side of Tamua, clearly expecting the ball to be got back and then to be used on the next phase and carry into the backs and the mismatch. Just a handling error, passing the ball back, and just seeing how difficult these conditions are when there's big collisions.
Isi Naisarani, a very important addition to the way that Australia are able to play. Only completed his residency, his 3-year residency this April. Went to the Brumbies from the Western Force, and now at the Rebels got the Players' Player of the Season this season, which gives you a strong indication how impactful, how strong he's been, and certainly seems to be making an impact for his adopted country as well.
And that's the pressure, you call up the ball to win the ball.
Pressure coming on from the Aussie scrum.
Right, and that's the pressure, call up the ball to win the ball.
Well, you heard Monsieur Gozer. And now Matt Tamua sets his forwards up for a big opportunity. 10 minutes from the end of this first half. Well, the call, I think, has gone on this near side against Gigashvili, the tight head. Difficult to gauge from where the referee was, but the assistant on this side helping.
Wall. Please, leave it now. Leave it now.
Talulatu into the drive. Tamua coming to add his little bit of weight to the cause. White looking for the runners coming off him. Karevi inevitably offers.
Back. Stay, two.
Naisarani again.
Advantage. Tackle off the ball, two wide.
Already into double figures in carries, the Aussie number 8. Advantage call is there.
Look on here, tackle without the ball by 2 wide.
Too much over-enthusiasm from Georgian defence on that occasion. I think it was Mamakashvili, the hooker, who was pointed at.
Yeah, he took one of the Australian supporting players off. You can't touch those, you have to take the ball carrier.
By the 2 wide.
The reason, from a defensive perspective, you see players not just going for the ball carrier, but the supporting players, is because the supporting player adds the additional weight. But unfortunately, when the referee spots it, it's a penalty.
Well, this Georgian defence under duress, and coming to the end of a first half in which they've predominantly been, well, not in reverse mode necessarily, but certainly having to put their shoulder to the mill in terms of defensive duties. There's going to be some very, very tired bodies out there right now.
There are, but let's remember this is the last game of the World Cup. For some of them, they won't get an opportunity like this again. You've got Gugotse, who is an absolute legend of Georgian rugby and known throughout the world in the rugby community, and I'm sure everyone will be putting their bodies on the line for him and making sure he gets the send-off, as Sam alluded to in the studio.
Yeah, he'll be a dominant part in those 111 tackles that Georgia have put in so far, that's for sure. Rory Arnold goes strong, and it's Gugotse who takes the ball, but from an offside position. The penalty's beginning to mount up from Georgia inside the 22, and I think the skipper's going to get a lecture from the ref. Let's have a listen.
Close to the goal line, you have to change the behavior quickly. Have a word for the player. Discipline.
Okay, what was the last one for?
It come from the side. Before he was tackled without the ball.
So Pascal Galzer laying it on the line to Sharakatse.
You know. He come from the side.
And the call from Pocock is, let's have more of the same then.
Discipline.
We see Gogotse nodding, saying, yes, I understand, knowing full well what he's done.
He is a real gentle giant off the pitch. I can speak from personal experience, doesn't speak a word of English, but what a lovely, lovely man off the pitch. On the pitch, well, quite often we see his alter ego, but what an alter ego it is.
Fine, through it, that's fine.
Nick White having to do the dog to get that one out of that situation. Pocock offers and leads. Quick ball presentation, and it's White sniping again, threatening. Good work from Aprozitse, holding his opposite number up. But a couple of metres away now, Australia, from their second try.
Back. Stay here, back. One step back.
Pocock again leading the next drive. Plenty of Georgian shirts awaiting him. Nasserani finding no way through and having to cede a good metre and a half there. Samoa Haylett Petty comes round on that outside arc, but it's read beautifully by Sharakadze. And Australia are having to go from a little bit deeper now. Aprozitse in very quickly with the tackle. Good work from the Georgians again, but they're still feeling the stress of these wave of Australian attacks. The dive pass from Kepu, aborted.
No, it's a clean out from the side by 8 goal. It's a penalty here. Yeah.
Well, Georgia get the penalty that will allow them to catch their breath, and they're going to need it. 5 minutes to go in this first half.
That is huge momentum shift from Georgia in their defensive effort. They might have already put in 115 tackles, but they not only repelled a driving maul from Australia, they repelled the pick and go. They forced Australia to use their backs. They forced Australia back towards the 22. Absolutely superb work.
Well, there you can see what the penalty call was for against Naisarani. Your reaction to that?
Gozer is third in at the side, but actually there's contact with the face.
Want to review the clean out by
well,
8
Marius
goal.
Jonker is going to be brought into action.
Yeah, 8 goal.
I feel like we might see a yellow card potentially for this one.
Let's have a listen.
Okay, Pascal, are we ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
And we're putting it on the screen for you now.
Thank you. Thank you. What I saw in a bit.
So hang on, Pascal, hang on. So I'm going to give you, that is the point of contact, and then I'm going to play it to you in full speed, all right?
Yeah.
So that is point of contact. We're now going to full speed.
Yeah, what I saw in a big screen is the number 8 cleans the player with the biceps, with the arm on the face, but no force. The player is very close to the breakdown.
Yeah, just hold on.
He want to wrap the player with the 2 arms. Yeah. And for me, it's a penalty and yellow card. Anyone disagree with my decision, Jerome and Ishue?
Yeah, I agree with you.
I wonder whether there's people at home who agree with that decision. But Monsieur Gozer has already issued 3 yellows and a red in this tournament. He's going to issue his 4th yellow from the sounds of that.
Talk with number 8.
I agree with that decision. It's unfortunate, but it's the fact that Naisarani also comes in from the side.
The player, you try to wrap with the arm, with no high degree of danger, but you make a contact with the bicep, with the arm on the head, is a penalty and yellow card against you.
You can see what Naisarani did, and it's when you ride up the back of your own player to clear out the defence. But he came in from the side. You've just heard it from Gozer. He made contact with the face, and I agree with that decision.
So Australia down to 14 for the 5 minutes either side of half-time.
Please. 7. No, stop. That's enough now.
How will that impact on the way that these two teams are thinking now? Especially for the likes of Gorgatse and Gorgotse. Feel that they can get out of their 22 and get their own game into some sort of order. They've had very few trips into the Australian 22. Been stuck in the deep end of their own for most of this first half. But they can't make the most of it. Tamua, Karevi, good strong leg drive from the Queensland Reds captain. Scrappy around the breakdown, but the penalty call is there for the Wallabies.
He cannot catch a ball.
And it's a moment like losing that line out that just isn't good enough. And when you play top-tier nations, you have to make the most of those opportunities. We saw them turn over a line out down by the Australian try line. And seeing that was a great attacking opportunity. You can punish Australia for the mistake they've just made and the card they've just received. But the detail, I think there, Nick White has played it a little bit.
A scrum half, exaggerating? Surely not. Going to be an opportunity for more points. I don't think that's Isan Naisarani coming on as kicking substitute. I think that is Matt Tamua. There we go.
Keep walking like
Wallabies 10 looking to get some points on the board while they're a man down. Swings it round to take Australia into double figures as we work our way towards half-time in this one. Well, definitely a double cagoule day for the Aussie fans, but they won't mind their enthusiasm not being doused if their team keep adding points.
And that's really important because Australia came into the game with only 68% of goal kicks made. And although Tamua came in with 83% himself, it has to improve as they go towards the knockouts. And those are moments that England will be watching, because when those kicks are made, you see that the penalties are punished.
Great follow-up from Kacharava. What timing from the Georgian outside centre there. Just take a look at this. Boom.
Yeah, he's a tackle demon, Kacharava. He has done a lot of hard work for the Georgian outside channels. Technically, he is brilliant. He stays on his feet. He makes great contact with the shoulder, which we just saw. But because he stays on his feet, he's able to drive through the collision.
Making his 101st start in Georgian colours. The only internationals that have made more are Philippe Sella, who's made 2 more than that. Of course, our very own Brian O'Driscoll, who's well away in terms of that particular rota. Or roster, I should say, as Akbrazidze sets things up for a very important opportunity for the Georgians. Gorgatse off the bench for Georgia, right at the end of this first half. Looking to make impact off the bench. A sit-down tackle from Jack Dempsey. Machashvili in as the feed. See that Wallaby line moving up so quickly, putting pressure on the ball carrier. Nowhere to go there for Khmeladze. And the only place Georgia have gone is backwards. There's the replacement, getting good leg drive but losing the ball, and Arnold is first to react. And the ball comes back to Haylett Petty and he slams it clear. Moment is gone again for Georgia. They're few and far between and they've yet to really make anything of them. Pataya back in position on the right wing for this game. Played on the left wing against Uruguay.
No, please, stay.
Tighter is the call from the scrum half. With the wetness of the ball, you can understand why. Well, Tamua sends the ball into the stands, sends the teams into the hutches. It's been a tight first 40. The try from the scrum half. The only difference between the two teams. Plenty to play for after the break. At the turnaround, it's Australia leading 10 points to 3.
And STV. Quick weather update. The Japan-Scotland game on Sunday is still going ahead. We don't know what Typhoon Hagibis is going to do, but at the moment it's still going ahead. The headline is it will not be played on Monday. Let's get back to this game. Australia have the lead over Georgia 10-3. Nolly and Simon, all yours.
Thanks, Craig. Yes, thinking back to that first half, Nolly, when a team has got 4/5 of possession, 4/5 of territory, and yet they only lead by one score. What does that say about either team, really?
Australia's lack of execution when they've got near the Georgian line is a slight concern, because when they come up against England next week, it is crucial that they come away with points. And yes, they've taken the line-out option at penalties rather than kicked, apart from the last kick we saw from them. That is a concern that I'm sure they'll be addressing, and England will be rubbing their hands together with.
And from a Georgian perspective, to put in that many tackles, 128 was it, I think, in the first half, that's a huge effort. It's a matter of now what it's taken out of the tank for the second half.
It is, and the Georgian attack hasn't had much excitement throughout this World Cup, and you've seen ball in hand, they haven't been doing that much, and when you're that exhausted from the amount of defence they're putting in, that it's the attack that also suffers.
Well, Georgians attack suffering there from David Pocock's presence, as ever. It's, I think, the 5th time that Georgia have given away a penalty at the breakdown. More often than not, it's Pocock who's the agent provocateur.
You see a not straight from Latu. I actually think he was trying to send it straight to Tamua, the angle of that ball.
Still a matter of 4 minutes or so left for Naisarani before he returns. Georgia looking to make something of his absence at the moment. It's only been Australia nabbed a 3-pointer off the tee.
Crunch! 5!
So the 8-man pack of Georgia up against the 7 men of Australia. Again, though, the pre-engagement not to the liking of Monsieur Gozer.
Balance, gap.
But that clock keeps ticking up on the left-hand side, as you can see, for the Aussie number 8. They won't mind.
No leaning, just control. Crunch! Bye! Set! Stay! Use out now! Yeah, he's out now!
Aprozitse told to get on with it, and finds an angle through there to take his team up into the Australia half. Michael was saying that he thinks it's a poker play from Michael Checker in terms of what's coming, but you just wonder whether this is an opportunity missed in terms of getting some oil on the cogs, or how many surprises will there be in the quarterfinals when, you know, the analysis is so in-depth.
To be honest, England will know exactly how these Australians like to play. They've had lots of opportunity to play against them or watch them, like you say, through the Rugby Championships, and I think it's strange not necessarily trying things in games like this, because you're not really showing your hand, because England are a totally different side.
White given a hug by Aprozitse.
Not on the board.
And the ball comes loose for Georgia. Kacharava looking for some support. Australian tacklers falling off the Georgian centre. Big moment in this game early in the second half. Georgia just waiting to get some real attacking intent, but the ball goes loose from Gorgatse, and here come the Wallabies. Karevi and Koryombetti always happy to do those hard ball carrying yards. Ball falls for Jordan Pataya.
Offside line.
Offside call going against Georgia as their Wallaby number 8 returns to the fray.
Such a shame they knocked the ball on after that line break from Kacharava.
Okay, number 3.
It was a great opportunity for them to build some phases and punish the missed tackles from Australia, but just showing some lack of skill and how difficult it is in these conditions to keep the ball.
Wait, the player's still on the field.
Both teams trying to get that continuity, that momentum into their play, but conditions just hindering them as Sikopi Kepu makes his way from the pitch. Got a knock midway through that first half and seems to have struggled to keep going in the second. There's that break from Kacharava. Boy, was this an opportunity they missed. Pocock in as first receiver, that lovely little inside ball to Pataya.
Knock on goal first. Knock on goal first.
Quite going to hand, but you can see suddenly the Australian attack beginning to flower.
Nice first phase play, bringing in someone like Pataya. He's a big ball carrier.
And the player touch the ball.
At 6'3", running that line, if the ball is stuck, you'd think he'd probably bust it or at least make a really good positive carry for the next phase.
You see the handling dexterity of Matt Tamura as well. There's the distinctive visage of Nick White. Looks like if he had white gloves on, he could be the starting scrum half of the Downton Abbey 15.
Wait. Keep your line long back, please.
It's definitely a unique look.
Wouldn't suit you. His opposite number, Jenna Pazidze, getting just his 5th start in the Georgian number 9 shirt.
Ball is out. Knocked on the tackle.
Good work from Dempsey, hounding the ball carrier, knocking it on, but he's just stunted that opportunity for the Lelos.
And seeing the difference when Australia have gone back up to 8 players in the scrum with Naisarani returning to the field. That extra weight and power come from the 6'5" number 8 is clearly something that's going to make a difference, and you see how much damage they did to the Georgian scrum.
You have to stay up. Stand up, please.
Number 18 there, Taniela Tupou, the Tongan Thor, as he was known at school. Something of an internet sensation. He was at school in Auckland. If you have time, yes, go and take a look at what he was like on the playground. Different playground now, and an awkward ball for Koryombetti to have to cope with. That's a good kick from Aprisitse.
Slightly better kick and angle from Adbrahidze. We saw exactly the same play, and he didn't quite get that angle and the territory that he just got.
Back, stay. No control.
Well, whatever Michael Cheika said at half-time doesn't seem to have really manifested itself in the Wallabies' play in the 8 minutes since they've been back out. Handling errors racking up on the Aussie side, as you can see there.
And yes, the conditions are really bad, and they've had a huge amount of possession, which then kind of transfers into the amount of errors that you make. but they made sloppy errors against Uruguay, and it's the detail that you need when you go into the knockout stages that you can't afford just to give away possession. And against Georgia, yeah, it's okay. Against England, you'll get punished, whether it's points or territory or having to make a huge amount of effort from a defensive perspective.
And the fact that you have that many opportunities, does that then build up the pressure? The fact you've only got one try on the board, you've only got 10 points, that presumably from within is going to provide its own angst, should we say?
Yeah, you do get a little bit tenser, especially as the minutes are creeping by, and it's more frustration because you know that you should be beating Georgia by a lot more points potentially. But you know, I think we need to give credit to Georgia. They're defending with their hearts on their sleeves. It's just whether they can last 80 minutes like this.
Oh, it's been ever so impressive from the Lelos, that's for sure. And that scoreline really does reflect the efforts that they've put in, particularly when they were stuck in the deep end in that first half, having to endure wave after wave, pardon the pun, of Australian attacks. Now trying to force Australia to go from a long way away. There's Tupou. Well, when he gets those engines going, he's difficult to stop. 132 kilos on the hoof there. O'Connor. Haylett Petty. Scored 5 tries in his 4 starts this year, but not really been given an opportunity since coming off the bench early on for that Curtly Beale head injury assessment. Now that is another awkward collision, an immediate concern from the Georgian medics. Whack. That's horrible. Completely accidental, of course, but understandable urgency from the Georgian medics to make sure the scrum half and left winger. See the face of Aprozitse there as he hit the deck.
Not what you want to be seeing. Complete accident. Both players playing with such intensity and wanting to get that ball that was spilled from the collision.
Messrs Nariashvili, Mamukashvili and Gigashvili bid adieu to Rugby World Cup 2019. Presuming, of course, they don't have the need to come back on into the front row in the next half an hour. Concern around the young scrum half, like-for-like replacement, obviously. In Lobsanidze, they've been rotating as the stretcher's called for.
You saw how quickly the medics got onto the field and the care that they give to players. It's so important with a head injury to not only look after the player in terms of the concussion symptoms, but also the impact that they take through their neck. So that's why you're seeing them just holding it, just to make sure that there isn't any movement and be looked after as they're carried off.
Australia making change in their scrum half berth already. Will Genia on for his 109th cap.
First the player and after.
Of course, it's a reduced rugby programme tomorrow in the World Cup. With the typhoon coming in, but we will have Ireland Samoa for you at 11 AM. Joe Schmidt's team looking to ensure their ticket to the quarter-final. 11 AM tomorrow morning.
Just going to that Nick White substitution. Cheika has changed the scrum half at 50 minutes for every single game of this World Cup. And I think sometimes it's overlooked, actually, when substitutions are made and you feel like they're as standard point in the game, whether it's a minute or whether something's just happened. But that's a clear tactic for him, and he obviously wants to give his scrum halves a decent amount of time to get into the game, because sometimes when you arrive on the field and there's not that much, you try too hard and you don't get the minutes just to settle. And scrum half is a position where you do really need to take the control. And to be honest, to have Genya on the bench,
it's not bad.
He's one of the world's best, so yeah, I'm sure he'll be straight into it.
It tends to be a prescriptive change for front rowers, but for scrum halves to come in after 50, not always seen. But as you say, it is a regular checker call. And when you've got the experience of Will Genya on your bench, why wouldn't you use it? This will be his last World Cup tournament, his third tournament on his CV.
And the one part of his game that we haven't seen from White is the box kicking. It's something that is superb from Genya. It's very tactical in terms of where he places it. He often rolls the ball so it hits the ground and rolls forward and gains extra territory, or hits the touchline. So whether the tactics change now he's on the field, it'll be interesting.
And in these conditions, that would be an accepted and expected tactical call from the base of the scrum in particular. Now you can see everybody just waiting as Aprasitse is being taken off on that stretcher. All due care and attention, of course, for the Georgian scrum half. Now you can see due concern really for the 21-year-old playing in the Montpellier Academy. Of course, plenty of Montpellier connection. Nick White himself was ex-Montpellier, and his second row, coach Mekatatse, in the ranks for Vern Cotter at the moment.
Everyone keeping themselves warm, and what better way to do it than the old Mexican wave.
I don't think Kmalitze is actually clapping the Mexican wave, but he's giving his scrum half an exit, as are most of the Australians. Nobody wants to see this on the rugby pitch, that's for sure. Half an hour left to go, and just that solitary score between the two teams. Georgia, of course, looking for victory that would give them the third place finish and the ticket to 2023. Good to see Georgia Aprasitse talking there to the medics. Plenty of local fans mixing with the tourists, mixing with the visitors to Japan. And all of them standing now, and you can see the clapping from the appreciation from the Georgian 9. That's good to see as he makes an unwanted exit from this game.
Seabed tackle by 12, White. Penalty.
So, 6-minute delay to this one. In these conditions, that won't be easy for the players, but they will try and get their engines going once again.
It's yours.
And those changes to the Georgian front row now confirmed as we get things back underway. Talulatu, born in Tonga but brought up in Australia since the age of 2. Started the Fiji and Wales games, so the premier call from Michael Checker for that hooking berth, you would think. Samu Karevi on to Suntory Sungoliaths. He's going to stay in the country after this, where his new head coach will be a certain Milton Haig. Good clearance from the Georgians, as again an Australian attack stutters to a close.
A simple error from a really good carry from Dempsey. He's an exciting player. He's lost the ball in contact a couple of times because Georgia are clearly attacking that height that he has and where he holds the ball.
There goes Karevi again.
Leave it to thanks.
Corimbetti. Again, the ball goes loose. And again, Georgia quick to react. Melekidze, the Stade Francais tight head, taking his team up to halfway. Gogishashvili, another prop, who's plying his trade in the French capital, the other French team. See how fast that yellow line moves up and strangles the Georgian ball carriers.
It is coming up fast, but at the same time, Georgia is so deep and they're passing the ball back with no intent to come onto it at any pace. So they're always going to lose the gain line battle there. Simple error and penalty given from Rodder not rolling away. And this is the type of rugby that is really frustrating. They are only winning 10-3. They will be very aware of that. They know they're pretty much going to win this game, I'm sure, but they're allowing Georgia to stay in the game by simple errors, and it's just frustrating to watch.
But in these conditions, are Australia sure that they're going to win?
You'd like to think so, because every time that Georgia have got the ball, their attack isn't good enough to repel any of the defence that's coming up in front of them. But actually, teams can stay in games when you keep giving away possession and allow them to kick the territory like they're just doing.
Well, one thing's for sure, Georgia will be looking to make the most of these rare visits into the opposition 22. Just waiting for Saganatse. Vatse, such an experienced operator. Tries his trade in the country with the Sunwolves, but has been all over the place in different club colours over his years. Scored a try in that game against Uruguay. Didn't last long in the game against Wales. 71 seconds he'd been on the pitch before he saw yellow. Looking to extend the game time, no doubt, this one. Finds Mikotatse. Ball is out, and that was quick work from Latu. Good anticipation from the Wallaby hooker. Saw that the ball had hit the deck. Got confirmation from the referee.
Good speed of reaction from Latu and experience, darting round there. And once again, Georgia not getting their set piece right when they have got an attacking opportunity. But we need to credit the defence of Australia.
Well, keeping that French connection going, Tolu Latu is going to be packing down alongside Melekidze after this tournament, because they're both going to be in the colours of Stade Francais. So it's an early getting to know you opportunity for the two front rowers there. Genya, ex-Stade Francais, waits to put the ball in, but well, the call going against Gogishashvili from the near side touch judge.
I mean, there are some weird and wonderful and very intricate techniques used in the front row, but for me it looked like Tupou had actually set up at an angle. And yes, Gogishashvili goes in and falls, but was it actually the setup that encouraged him to do that?
Genya to Tamua and Pocock in as the conduit. Now the release to the wider channels. Corimbetti back to Haylett Petty. That inside pop, hoping that somebody was running the support line. Tupou. And Australia beginning to build momentum into this attack. There's Tupou with that piston handoff. You're going to duck that, aren't you? Wherever you're going, you're going to duck that.
He's like a bollard. He's the same width all the way down.
Genia weighing up the options, opening it wide. Tamua straightening it up, but Genia getting inadvertently in the way. Haylett Petty having to pick up the scraps and ceding the penalty in the act of doing it.
Lobanitze getting his body height over that there, but also it was the work of Gogichatsvili holding on to him. You see a leech onto your own player, which actually allows them to have extra body weight and strength over the ball.
But I'm going to revert back to what you said earlier about Australia taking the chance to run these moves, to get everything synced. There was a case where you've got Genia, Tamua, and maybe not just being quite in the right place at the right time, and it goes to pot.
Yeah, there was an error there and misjudged in terms of that connection. It hasn't really functioned this game, but I also think that that's the fact that they're running absolutely everything, and they don't need to, but it's clearly a game plan, because I can't see how players with this much talent would not use the kick as an option from an attacking perspective.
Well, a big moment here for Rob Simmons. A late call-up to the Wallaby bench to replace Adam Coleman, as Saganatse also goes from the pitch. But for Rob Simmons, he becomes the 11th Wallaby Centurion once he steps on again. So the big man from Theodore, wearing 19 there.
14.
His 100th appearance for Australia, replacing that man, Rory Arnold. Is that the last we're going to see of David Kacharava? Cap number 119 for him.
Wait.
So big changes from both sides. James Slipper also into action. He's used to coming off the bench. This his 50th appearance for the Wallabies off the bench. Christian Leofano also in, so see how that works out. Presumably Matt Tamua will move out one. Tololatu still in the fray, still plying his trade in that two-shirt. There's Leila Alfano. See Tamua just hanging behind Karevi there. Simmons. Slipper. Tamua and Leila Alfano maybe giving slightly different options as fly half and inside centre with that playmaking capacity. Corin Betty finds a way through and puts the afterburners on. Samuel Corin Betty. Oh, what a try that was. That's special. When you want something special, call for Corin Betty. His 11th try in Australian colours. What a try.
Absolutely superb individual effort from Corabetti. The footwork is basically from a standing start, and the delicacy of his footwork, he's just sliding in and out. Superb finish. And to recognise that actually, you know what, I'm not going to score in the corner, I'm going to score closer to the sticks to make it easier for my my kicker.
Well, playing in his first Rugby Union World Cup, played in a Rugby League World Cup back in the day for his native Fiji. Scored against Fiji in that opener, of course, and now does the deed against the Georgians just when his team really needed it.
And it shows how lethal these players are if they do get a little bit of space against a disorganised defence. Georgia has tried to stay with them, but they were disorganised because the ball had bounced, and the slaloming run from Coravetti was just brilliant to see.
The immaculate boot of Matt Tamua keeps providing the points off the tee as the hour mark goes And at last, Australia have a bit of security on that scoreboard.
You see the acceleration and the step and the ability to maintain that speed whilst changing direction is an incredible skill, and he's just such a great rugby player to watch, ball in hand.
Well, the Australian camp sitting a little more relieved after that score. They know pretty much, well, they know they've got a quarter-final spot. It's a matter of where they finish. Of course, Wales against Uruguay, you would think, would go to Warren Gatland's men, which would mean that it would be Wales against France in one quarter-final, and the Aussies will be up against England in the other, or one of the others. Kenya slamming the ball away.
Far more controlled play there from Australia.
On the line, ball.
Nice catch from the restart, shifting it, good platform, and then exit play from Kenya. That's the type of rugby that you expect to see from Australia, and we haven't had yet in the first 60 minutes.
So Luke and Salakai Loto on, there is the confirmation. He came in as a late replacement for Michael Hooper on the bench, and now replacing the other captain, as it were, David Pocock.
Touch.
With the two most experienced squads in this competition on view today, though there's 18 World Cup debutants in the Wallaby ranks, of which Salakai Loto is one. 46 caps per man they average, but bearing in mind you've got now 3 Centurions out there, 4 Centurions now, with Genia Kepu, and of course you can add Rob Simmons in there as well. Been there, seen it, done it, got plenty of T-shirts. And the Georgian line-out not working, and Rob Simmons quick and eager to feed on that loose ball. Nasarani driving himself further forward as Australia set themselves for another attack. The call goes quickly. Genia off the mark, the little chip forward. Who's going to get there first? Tupou in chase, but Sandro Tudua, well, he could hear the heavy footsteps coming behind him and was quick to release the ball.
It was like Tupou was like a charging rhino after that ball. Brilliant spot from Genia to take the penalty quickly and to keep the ball alive by kicking into the open space. Ideally, you wouldn't have had Tupou as the chaser, you would have had a back, but he did the damage. A good attacking platform now for Australia.
Now keep your mind now. Keep your mind. That's one. Keep your mind. Use it now.
Australia working a set move off the scrum, but doesn't make any headway. Christian Leofano certainly does. Into the 22. That little inside pop again.
Yeah, no call.
Trying to find the gaps, but again the ball just not staying in the possession.
It was a nice set move from Australia, but they seem to be jogging through it with real kind of, I mean, you can see there the Georgians anticipating that carry from Dempsey.
Yeah, Greg Vatse it was who was on alert as Dempsey came through. Wore the 8 shirt against Uruguay, Jack Dempsey, but, well, no, he wore the 6, but played at 8. And certainly seems to add something to that back row breakaway. Well, covering all bases, I think that's called. Either way, I'm supporting the winner.
I don't know whether they were koala bears or, I don't know, some kind of fictional character there.
I hope they were koalas.
Like the Teletubbies.
That's a long time ago.
Showing my age.
Georgian flags being flown for the last time in this tournament. Passionate about their rugby. They hosted the under-20s tournament 3 years ago, and I was lucky enough to be in Tbilisi, and you saw the passion, the enthusiasm for this game, for their country, and it bodes very well for the future of Georgian rugby when they have that sort of support, that sort of desire and ambition to get higher. Lobsonitze unable to get that ball clear, and suddenly it's Australia who, well, I was about to say had the chance, but James Slipper can't hold on to it there. Haylett Petty finding no way through, but showing good strength in the leg drive. Machashvili seems to have taken a knock there at the contact area, but Australia still going with Salakai Loto. Again, they look at that inside pop, that little angle, trying to open up that channel of defence. Good hands from Haylett Petty.
Yeah, you touch the ball and the player in front catch the ball. There's no con. Scrum wide.
There seems to be definitely an improvement in the pace that Australia are wanting to play with Will Genia coming on at 9. But the turnover originally comes from the Georgian scrum because it's coming down channel 1, which is the first channel, and it's easy pickings for someone like Genia to pounce on that ball.
Is it problem? We have to wait. No, please. Please, we play.
You usually see the ball coming out on the right-hand side of the number 8 rather than left-hand side, and the 8 can then use his body to block the scrum half. But coming out on the left-hand side, Genia, it's free for him to take, and there's a good turnover and reaction from him.
Jordan Uelese replacing that man, Tolulatu, now in the middle of the scrum for the Wallabies. Uelese actually was at that under-20s tournament in Tbilisi. One of the crop of young Wallaby stars coming through the ranks now. You see the number of changes that Cheika has made. The bench emptied now. Gogatse hasn't had much chance this game to really make those charges in attacking mode.
Please, back. 1 step. 1 step.
Giogatse waits for his scrum half to come round. It's slow goings though for Georgia. And the inevitable box kick that follows. Haylett Petty calls, takes, just bounces his head off the whitewash, but that was an impressive take from the fullback.
Superb take and commitment in the air. Timed it to perfection, but unfortunately when the ground is slippery like this and there's only one direction that you're going to be heading towards the touchline.
Numbers. No. Please, no. Gap is 4. No, play on.
Again, the deflection to a Georgian line-out works for the Wallabies. Again, they come round with intent, with Uelese leading the charge. Leofano, Tamua and O'Connor just not on the same page, and again you just see those little moments in the Australian attack that come unhinged at a critical time.
And they're just not linking together. It's strange because they've played well together, the pairing there, but the Georgian line-out has been terrible, and although Australia are reading it well, Georgia have had no platform to play off.
And so it continues. Greg Vadse does well to actually manufacture a position for them, but they're stuck on that right-hand touchline, and that's good line speed from Rob Simmons and co. Had such a good Rugby World Cup 2015, beat Tonga and Namibia to secure 3rd spot and that ticket to make sure they were here. It allowed Milton Haig to really develop his team over the last 4 years. I don't worry of qualification. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case this time round. Great angled kick from Lobsanidze. Betty does well to keep the ball in play. O'Connor looks for the advance. No messing around on this occasion from James O'Connor. Great to see him back in the Wallabies shirt. Had a 6-year absence before returning for that New Zealand test in August. As I say, adds something a little bit different to the Australian midfield mix, or the back three, or wherever Michael Cheika chooses to play him.
I think he's such an exciting player to watch. He's a ridiculous threat, ball in hand, and we've seen a couple of errors from him today, but his footwork, the timing of his pass is just incredible. And when you've got outside backs like we've seen from
Corin Betty.
Yeah, there really is attacking threat.
Again, the line out doesn't work for Georgia this time, though. The deflection does fall back into their clutches. Oh, a break from Kmeladze. The support is there from Tadua. Sandro Tadua pins his ears back. And at last, Georgia do have a 5-pointer. And how popular is that?
What a moment for Georgia. Incredible line break, and you can see the crowd are going wild. They've had lots and lots of opportunity, but they've lost the ball in line-out. But we see when they actually manage to get it. Oh, just superb. It's Tamua that shoots up out of the line. He offers the seam. And then the run-in from Tadua. Oh, brilliant moment for Georgia.
Yeah, it's on the timing, it's a good timing.
Well, Kmeladze, their most experienced fly half, makes his, coincidentally, his 50th start in that 10 shirt, but the future seemed to be Tito Absandadze, who started the first 2 games, hasn't been in the group for the last 2. But there was the burst from the Fijian number 10, and Sandro Tadua. Well, he may not have the best of tackling records, but he's had some superb scoring records, and that the 9th try that Georgia have run in this tournament. That's their best World Cup performance.
Boys, 9 minutes.
That's the way forward for the Lelos. Maybe too little too late, who knows? With this conversion, they're still within 1 score. Just hooking away, and Centurions and Georgian fans alike loving the score, but disappointed that they couldn't maximise it.
Superb basics from Kmeladze to be able to put that width on the pass from Tadua and not have to break stride. But it was Tamua's defensive error. He shot out and there was a mismatch and a seam for Kmeladze to run through, and he took it and then he put his flying wing away.
It's obviously a love your left winger day. Both 11s getting on the scoreboard as Leo Leofano gets the wrong club out the bag for the restart.
Captain!
Jogatse just trying to keep everybody honest, but, well, it may be that the Georgians are going to run out of time, but they will have enjoyed that brief flare of success in their attack. Captain being taken off, Sharakadze just watching these last vestiges of their campaign from the bench.
Good platform, no
and there'll be some sore bodies tomorrow. They've made 193 tackles, and the most noticeable of the stats in front of me is that they've only missed 25, and that is a huge, monumental effort against a side like Australia.
193, that's ridiculous. Did you make that many in your career?
I was quite fortunate.
You played fullback.
Playing fullback.
Keep away from it.
With a very good defensive line in front of me.
See Simon Rawalui on the right of your picture, former Fijian captain, now in charge of the Wallaby forwards. Mick the Kickburn in the middle of them, skills coach. Worked with England at one time. Matt Tamura going to start with this kick. What a big year it could be for Matt Tamura. His wife, Elise Perry, is an Australian superstar cricketer, and they, of course, won the Women's Ashes earlier on this summer.
There you see the penalty being given from Tequilashvili. You can't use your hand in a scrum. You have to use your foot or push over the ball. Just a simple error. Now handing the ball back to Australia.
Yeah.
Advantage going to the Wallabies again. Little dab over the top for Karevi. Easy call though. And they will go back for that advantage against Mikatatse. Mikatatse, one of the ever-presents there. He is the big Montpellier man. Such a tough shift, seemingly in every game. Everything seems to be built around him. 6'7" and 136 kilos. Well, it's an obvious place to start, isn't it? Simmons provides the ball for the Wallaby forwards to gorge on. Uelezi driving through. Referee trying to get a vantage point. He can see it. Try is given. Which Australian is going to come up smiling broadest? It's Jack Dempsey, the back rower, getting up in the right position to just finishing things off. Shake of the head doesn't show too much elation.
This is much better from Australia. They were repelled in the first half by some strong Georgian attack, but there are bodies flying in everywhere, but they managed to keep hold of Dempsey, who's got the ball, give him the control, and then to dot it down. Just.
Yeah, just is just enough. As the fans and adopted fans of the Wallabies enjoy the moment. Looks like the front runners of Super, Typhoon Hagibis, are coming in the stadium just 150 miles southwest of Tokyo. So they're going to be impacted by the weather and the severe weather that's due to arrive tomorrow. Tamura can't find the target with that one either, but it matters not really when they look at the scoreboard. Follow me in those shorts, really?
Interesting to see that twice the camera's gone to Dempsey since he's scored the try, and twice he's shaking his head. He's obviously frustrated about something, but he should be pretty pleased. He's just got an extra 5 points on the board.
His first score for the Wallabies. Jack Dempsey opening his account with 4 minutes left of this game. Nasarani winds it up.
14 white. Just a penalty.
Penalty call there if it's needed, but Australia play through Karevi. O'Connor. Go back for that earlier call from the officials.
14 wide, penalty.
So Australia have the time now to set themselves for that quarter-final. It's going to be very interesting to see how they match up against England, if that's the assumed combination. We're assuming that Wales beat Uruguay. But it's going to be very interesting to see tactically how they play and how England set themselves up for the Wallaby threat.
And I'm sure that they will be very frustrated with a large part of their performance in today's game. I don't think the weather has helped them, and they haven't really shown their cards and their hand in terms of how they want to play. But basic errors are really frustrating from very talented players.
A 2-week lead-in for England, Nolly. Does that help or hinder Eddie Jones?
I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem. I'm sure they'll have a huge intensity in their training sessions. And actually, there's some great matchups from a competitive perspective.
Simmons and the offload, and Genia is there to finish things off. Well, this is looking to be an emphatic scoreline for the Wallabies. Maybe it doesn't signify the perfect performance that they might have been looking for, but then conditions were never going to allow that, really. And Genia is going to add the coup de grace to the scoreline. Rob Simmons was there, Tupou on hand as the conduit. The call came from his scrum half, and he always had the pace and the opportunity to finish off things there. And that is 100 points now for Will Genia in Wallabies colours. A centurion for Australia gets a century of points, and Australia, if needed, really confirmed victory this afternoon.
Nice initial line break and footwork from Simmons, and the offload to keep the ball alive. Will Genia is such a quality player, and good to see him getting over the whitewash.
Well, Tamua just losing his kicking radar latterly, but it doesn't really matter. The full-time whistle goes, and Australia have done the job. Georgia say sayonara to Rugby World Cup 2019, but Australia can now set themselves for the quarter-final challenge that they have next weekend. Final score from the Shizuoka Stadium. It's Australia 27, Georgia 8.